Mary, we will be starting the session. Is it okay?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Uh, can we have your video on at least the beginning?
Okay. I think its video is not switching on. It says you can share video when you're done. Maybe I'll stop sharing and then just.
Yes, ma'am. Only for the first 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So shall we start?
Yes.
Good morning once again to all the participants. Welcome back to the second session of the FDP Phase 1 sponsored by AICTE and hosted by the Oxford College of Engineering. Today our guest speaker for this session is Dr. Mary Mangaikarasi. She is the consultant intellectual property rights of Bangalore Bioinnovation Center. She has been taking care of the IP cell activities of BBC in filing, prior art search and FTO search, consultation on patentability of their invention and response to FER and transfer of technology to startups, academic and research institutes. She underwent training in TOT under Technology Transfer and Commercialization Training in the year 2019 by National Biopharma Mission, BIRAC. She is a registered patent agent having about 6 years of experience in IP filing. She underwent training in IPR through WOSC scheme of DST Type 5 program. She also holds a doctorate degree in the field of environmental microbiology from Loyola College, University of Madras. She has worked as project fellow in virology department of National Environmental Engineering Research Institute and in Indira Gandhi Center for Atomic Research, Kalpaka. Ma'am, we are very delighted to have you as our speaker for today's session. So on behalf of the staff, students, management of the Oxford College of Engineering, we welcome you as a speaker to this session.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your kind introduction. And I also would like to thank the faculty of Oxford Engineering College, the principal, and all the faculty for providing me this wonderful opportunity. It's an honor to present in such an FTP. Thank you very much for this opportunity. So, shall I start with the presentation, ma'am?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I'll put off the video because I am getting, in between the voice is breaking for me. I'll put off the video. Once I finish the presentation, I'll put it on again.
Yes, ma'am, you can do that.
Yeah, thank you. So, good morning, one and all. I hope all the audience is all faculty members. That's what I heard from Professor Manjunath, and there are some few students. And I hope you have been going through a very interactive session and an intense session on the IP filing, IP aspects, and entrepreneurship. So today I would like to focus on the patent and entrepreneurship. The first thing I would like to tell you is there might be some overlaps with earlier presentations, and kindly bear with me because anyway, when you start a presentation, you have to give a short introduction, of course, and there'll be some aspects which will overlap. But I'm trying my best to give perspectives of patenting and entrepreneurship in the light of biotechnology. So with few case studies. So I hope I'll not put you to boredom through this presentation. Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, madam.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, sorry. Okay. So what is intellectual property rights? Let's start with it. I hope you have all gone through this thing again and again, definition again and again, and you will be little frustrated to see this. But I would like to tell you, yes, intellectual property rights are the rights acquired over a property. So what is that property? Here, the property generally that we see is any asset that we own, like a building, like a house, like any land or any other property. But here, it's a property which has born out of your intellect. So how do you? It's an intangible asset. So that is where it gets its importance. It's an intangible asset, and you have to make it into a very tangible asset in order to protect it. That is where intellectual property rights law come into picture. So when it could be anything, the intellectual property rights need not necessarily be an invention, very complex invention. It could be as simple as a bell clip, a safety pin. All these were intellectual property rights. Everything is an intellectual property right. And any trademark in a novel way, I mean in a creative way, if you draw, then that is also an intellectual property right. Anything that you design, that you make a design, own design for a particular products, say for a bottle, a water bottle, you give a particular design, a specific shape, that is again an intellectual, because all this comes out of your intellect. Even whatever books you write, it's an intellectual property. Even though you may refer many other places in order to publish the book, to write the book and publish the book, still it is your own intellectual property, because you have put it in your words, in your own words. You have voiced it in your own, your thoughts are voiced there. Okay, so that is another intellectual property rights. So let's look at what are the various intellectual property rights. So these are the legal instruments to protect each of your intellectual property, right? That is patents, trademarks, copyright, geographical indications, integrated circuits, industrial designs. I'm sure many people would have gone through extensively into these things, but I just give a just as a revision, let's say. So I'll just say patents are intellectual property rights that is acquired for any inventions, technical inventions, where the functioning of that invention has to be described in detail. Okay, and that you have to claim, what you have to write a claims, that is you have to claim what you think is novel and inventive in your invention. So that is what is patents. So next is a trademarks is for any brand that you want to assign it to your product. And again, copyright is for any literary work, artistic work, any video or anything that you make relating to the product. See, supposing you have a product and you have a brand, that will brand for that product will come as a trademark, and any manual that you create for that product will come as a copyright, or any algorithm that you write for the product will come as a copyright. And industrial design again is if you have specific design for a cover for that product, you have made a cover for the product in a specific design which will make it a very appealing. So that is more important in industrial designs. It should have an aesthetic value. That is what is more important in industrial design. So come, this is what you call as a bundle of IP for a single product, bundle of IP. So integrated circuits will come in when there is an electronics invention, of course, and geographical indications, as you all know, it is assigned to a particular region. So whatever is very exclusive to a particular region is given a geographical indication. So I am sure you have all gone through this very extensively in detail. So I don't want to again go through this. So what is a patent? I am here trying to concentrate only on patent, and that too in the light of life sciences and biotech. So what is a patent? It's an exclusive right given by the government to an invention, for a particular invention, for a particular duration of time, that is 20 years. Why this 20 years? That is what is the question here. So why this 20 years? Because there are two things in this. One is like you are given a monopoly right over your invention, over your intellectual property, because you created it. It's your hard work. It's born out of your hard work. That's why it is given to you. The right is given to you. So what is the right? It is a right to exclude others. But why this 20 years? It is because you can make benefit out of that invention only for a particular period of time. Okay, it should be used for the societal benefit after a particular duration. So the very aim of giving any intellectual property, that to mainly patent, is it is for the societal good. That is why government takes so much effort into giving you a certificate on your patent or an invention, because otherwise why would a government bother to give you a certificate on what you have found out? That is not their work. I mean, so but then it should be brought for the societal good. That is the main aim. main aim of a patent. But you should also be benefited. An inventor should also be benefited because they have also put in a lot of effort, a lot of time. So they should also be benefited. That is why after all so much of contemplation, because earlier it was only 14 years, then all over the world it was brought together in a common duration. That is when TRIPS brought it to 20 years. So that is why this 20 years is brought in. So after your 20 years, naturally your patent gets expired and it goes into the public domain for the society to benefit out of it. So 20 years is a duration that you can commercialize and reap the benefits. So what are the rights that are bundled with the patent? So this bundle of rights is again exclusive rights with a patent, of course, exclusive rights that no one else can make, use, manufacture, or market the invention without the consent of the patent holder. Here, the patent law does not say they give you the right to commercialize it. No, not you are not given the right to commercialize, but you naturally, inherently, you have the right to commercialize. But the patent law is providing a protection by excluding others from doing all these things, that is making, using, manufacturing, or marketing the invention without the consent of the inventor. So that is where the patent law is trying to protect you. Of course, as an inventor, you inherently you have a right to market it, right to produce it, and all that. So what is to make, use, and market the invention, and also that is inherently it is given. Then property right. What is the property right? Just like how you will assign your property, like you will gift your property to your son or to whomever you like, or like natural hair. As a natural hair, your children will naturally inherit your property. So similarly here also, intellectual property is naturally inherited by your hair after the demise of the inventor, of course. And of course you can gift it to somebody also, and also you can commercially you can benefit out of it by assigning, selling, or licensing. So these parts we will see at the end of towards the end of the presentation. And the rights are territorial in nature, of course. So if you get your patent right, you apply for a patent in India and you get it granted, that right is only valid in India. In other countries, it is not valid, of course. So every country you have to file and get a patent if you want to exercise your right in that particular country. But of course, when you have filed a patent in a particular country, it becomes a prior art to all the countries all over the world. So anybody creates that. By law, they should not try to mimic the same invention. It is not allowed. But you cannot file a suit against them as in the infringement when it is being done in another country. Supposing you filed your invention in India and you got it granted, the same invention, if somebody goes and copies and does it in any other country where you have not got a patent right, then you cannot file a suit of infringement against them. So only in India you can file a suit of infringement. But there are other ways you can file a suit of infringement, of course, which I will try to tell you at the end. So what is an invention? It's a product or a process satisfying these three criteria. So what are the three criteria? One is novelty, inventive step, and industrial applicability. So what is a novelty? Of course, you all would have heard, but I will try to just recap on that. Novelty is something new which you have created. So that something new component is not thought about by anybody else before. But like I say, there is already, you have created something that invention is not explained anywhere in the literature before. That is a new invention. But still, there is something called inventive step. That is, you should have an edge, a competitive edge. Technically, it should be competitive over the other inventions. So that is where inventive step comes. So when you file a patent application, most of them will pass the novelty and industrial applicability, because for novelty, generally a patent office will look for a single document which explains all your invention as a whole. Okay, if one document explains your invention as a whole, then you lose the novelty. So this part mostly it will get through, mostly. Okay. But inventive step is where you will always find a lot of queries and a lot of trouble to get over it, because inventive step, you have to show a technical advantage over the existing inventions. When you say technical advantage, it should be either economically advantageous, or it should show much efficiency. Okay. If it's the same similar type of invention, it should show much efficiency. Otherwise, it should be an advanced invention, like for a normal chair and a rolling chair. Okay. So it should be an advanced invention. So that's an inventive step. But also, if somebody is able to take up two, three prior arts, two, three literature, which is available, two, three patents, and then put them together, and if a person who is skilled, supposing you're a biotechnology person who has known the basics of biotechnology, and if they're able to come up with your invention, supposing, then again you lose your inventive step. So that part you should really make sure. Just because it's not there in the prior art, nobody has done in the with your methodology or your product in your method, not just because they have done doesn't mean you have an inventive step. Supposing a person is able to take 2-3 prior arts, 2-3 patents, and they're able to come up with your invention, like just by reading, I say I can collate all these three and I can come up with your invention. It's very obvious. Okay. That is where obviousness comes. And this is called anticipation. So this is where inventive step will always be quashed. You'll have to try to see how you can circumvent this invention when you're applying for a patent. And industrial applicability, of course, it's like whether you're able to produce it in an industry or apply it in an industry, mostly it will pass through. It will not have a problem, except in the sequencing, except in sequences in biotech, of course, mostly otherwise it will pass through. So why do you do the protection? To boost the innovation. Whatever innovation you want to do, you want to boost it. And why should you protect? Because to avoid theft of your innovation, to avoid infringement of others' invention by you. That is also one thing you should take care. That is why you do an extensively a prior art search, and you try to see that you don't infringe upon anybody else when you devise your invention only. That time itself you should take due care that you try not to infringe upon others, because once you may get the patent in the patent office, because they might miss that prior art. It can happen, because no prior art is completely full. Prior art search is foolproof, actually, to be frank. So because it's all hits of keywords. Okay. So if they, supposing they miss it, and the person who has that earlier patent can file a suit of infringement against you again. Okay. When you try to commercialize it, when you try to license it. So this will again a problem. So when you devise the invention, when you ideate the invention itself, try to see that you do not infringe upon others inventions. So that should be taken due care. So it is also to contribute to the knowledge economy. Only when you protect, you will be able to properly commercialize it and benefit out of it. And later on, once you benefit, the society will also benefit out of it. So that is the main idea why you should. So what are the IPR issues in biotechnology? When we come to the biotechnology, TRIPS excludes certain biological processes for the production of plants and animals as a patentable subject matter, because generally plants, animals, whatever is available in nature, if you find it's called as discovery, it's not an invention. So TRIPS has excluded these biological plants and animals. Otherwise, everybody will start owning a plant, which a new plant variety, if they are found out somewhere in the nature and somebody owns it, it is not good for the society. It's not good for the society. You will lose your access to that plant or to that animal or to that any of the natural resources that you have. I mean, natural such living things that you have. So that is why it has been excluded from the patentable subject matter. But it can be granted. Later it was revised to show that it can be granted to microorganisms, non-biological and microbiological processes used in the production of plants and animals. The processes can be patented, and of course microorganisms which is not found in the nature can be patented. So this was a major issue. Because of that, many times the particular laws were revised and brought in to accommodate these things. So IPR protection is generally granted only for one invention, that too. It's not for multiple inventions. One patent for one invention. Okay, and it is not given for any discoveries. And consideration of the industrial application is also an obstacle in biotechnology. You should see to that it is industrially applicable, or it is industrially you can produce it or apply it. That is where that as I said, the sequences would play a role where you will find some trouble. And in India, there are other ethical issues too, so related to patenting of life forms. These the most important being that private ownership. So the ethical issues, like that's what I said, everyone should have access to the natural resources. That is what, okay, for the common good. But if you provide a patent to a particular person over a particular plant variety or animal variety, then you lose that access. So that is where ethical issues comes into picture. Okay, so idea of profit making by exploiting any common heritage of invention, that is where the traditional knowledge, again, traditional knowledge is which has been known for years and years, and which nowadays, of course, we do not know all the traditional knowledge. It depends on the culture of a particular region. So everybody will not in the whole world will not know what exactly happens in a particular region, not leave let alone whole world, but not even in India, not even in Tamil Nadu. So I mean, not even in Karnataka. So supposing we say that a particular tribes has a particular type of what do you say, an extract that can cure fever. Okay, we may not know that, but still is a traditional knowledge. So that is why Government of India has brought in the traditional knowledge digital library, where they haven't put in all the traditional knowledge, so that nobody will try to patent inventions based on the traditional knowledge, stating that I have proven scientifically what it means. Because traditional knowledge doesn't have a scientific basis as by the tribes or by the particular cultural people. They cannot prove it scientifically, but somebody comes and proves it in the lab, doesn't mean that they have found an invention. So this is heritage, common heritage of the civilization has to be protected. So it is not patentable. So what are the biotechnology inventions? Generally, they were not granted to living entities of natural origin, biological material properties, substances derived from even anything extracted from the plants and animals, any extract. It could be anything, protein, any plant extract, it could be anything. If you have extracted, then it is not patentable. And any processes for the production of the living substances, including the nucleic acids. So these were not patentable till 2002. Okay, but later on, many modifications came, of course, wherein the microorganisms were allowed to patent, which will come up in the later slides. So according to the Patent Act of India, we have a non-patentability section, which is called the section 3. I'm sure it would have been dealt with you, but I'm trying to give you here more of biotechnology invention examples and try to, in the perspective of the biotech, and only the sections which are not, I mean, only the clauses which are relevant to biotech I've taken up here. So 3B is a biological material method of making it, which is capable of causing serious prejudice to human, animal, and plant lives. This is more important here. So here we see a terminated seeds. So when you genetically modify and terminate the seed production of a particular plant, then you don't bring it back into the cycle. So you're completely terminating the cycle. So this is not, this is a prejudicial invention that has been done, because you're trying to jeopardize the natural cycle. Okay, so it is a prejudice to the human animal lives, because otherwise it has to naturally again and again produce. Reproduction is one part of the plant's life cycle, but that is not being done here. So it is a prejudicial to the life of not only the plant but the entire environment, because of the life cycle and the life web of life. We need these things to happen naturally. So that is why it is considered morally, it is not morally right, and it is contrary to the public order. It is contrary to the public order. So that is why it is not allowed. So any such inventions, even genetically modified inventions, some of them are being argued like that. So generally, so any inventions or even stem cell cloning is another thing. So such things are not allowed. So here is one case study of onco mouse. Of course, all of the faculties being in biotech, you would have already known about this. So this is one famous patent. Which was granted in US, of course, and this is for carrying out a specific modifying a specific gene called an activated oncogene into the mammal. So in order to cause tumor, so the tumor will grow on the mouse. So this mouse was originally created in order to carry out a cancer research. That was the basic idea. But there were many arguments going over this. Okay, so they were telling what are the two key issues. Even though patent was provided by US on this, that patents be, there were two key issues. What is that? Should patents be granted at all for animals or animal varieties? First thing, particularly higher order animals. Second thing, and even if they do otherwise, if they otherwise meet the patentability criteria, that is novelty, inventive step, and the use industrial applicability. Even if they meet all this, should it be granted at all? First. Second thing, how should moral implications be addressed in relation to the specific cases? Here, the moral implication is the suffering that is being caused to the animal. Even though that animal was found, I mean, generally used for such studies, you try to induce a cancer into it and cause so much pain into the animal was a moral issue that was taken up. But there was in the next slide, before that I would like to tell you this transgenic mouse was patentable subject matter in all these countries that I have mentioned here: Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Finland, France, and all these countries it was patented, including the US and UK. And but there were some countries which did not give. But before that, how did these countries give? Even though it is against the public order or morality, how did these countries give? They based their arguments on a utilitarian balancing test. That is, what they say is, if I use something, if I bring out such an invention for the societal good, the ultimate aim of this invention is to bring out something good for the human society, then the invention is allowed. That was the basis for this. So it was argued in that sense. So the morality was compromised, and the public order, ordre public, that is public order, contrary to public order, was compromised in the sense that it will be ultimately used to find some drugs for the cancer, which will be used for the benefit of the humankind. But there is another case called the Upjohn mouse case. Okay, so that case is to stimulate the hair loss. The same transgenic mouse, of course, but it was used to stimulate hair loss in the mouse, and they were trying to study the treatment possibilities for hair loss. So this was ruled. The same utilitarian balancing test was here also applied, but the court ruled the opposite. They said they will not be able to allow grant patent for this because stimulating hair loss, and hair loss is a natural thing that will, of course, will happen not to everybody, and it will not be a life-threatening disease. Okay, hair loss, of course, is not a life-threatening disease, and it's for the aesthetic sense. So for such things, we cannot compromise the morality or the contrary to public order. So it was ruled opposite, even though it was a transgenic mouse, and it was argued that it's for the public good. So Canada Supreme Court also against totally rejected this patent on onco mouse, saying that they cannot provide a patent for the product, the mouse. The mouse cannot be owned by anybody, but the method of creating this can be granted a patent because the method is because of the human intervention. So the human has tried to find out a method. Of course, it's a process. Okay, so the process can be patented, but not the animal as of whole. That cannot be done. So Canada did not grant the patent, but the Indian law did not expound on this topic, and of course, it was not granted in India. So, but there were other examples like this. Ausgene is an Australian company where they again customize genetically modified mice. So what they use is here one germline technology using embryonic stem cells. So they give you mice to use for your research, for drug validation and medical research trials worldwide. They supply. And this Osgene is this patent was granted in Australia and many other countries. As you see the list here, in many countries it's still active. Okay, it's still in the publication state. Of course, many countries not yet granted, but it's the still publication state. But what they provide is again is a knock-in mice, knockout mice, and targeted transgenics. So whatever is your requirement, they make it through the germline technology using embryonic stem cells, and then they provide you with this mice. So wherever it was granted, of course, they are free to operate and they are free to provide this mice for drug validation and medical research. Of course, wherever there is still not granted, the moral and ethical issues still play a role, and they may not be able to commercialize this product. So this is one way of commercially benefiting out of this, even though it has its moral implications. It's a one way of commercially benefiting out of this. So process of cloning human beings or animals, process of modifying the germline, genetic identity of modifying the genetic identity of human beings or animals, then use of human being animals embryo for any person against the public order. All these are not patentable in India. So anything like this is not patentable. But if you want to create just culturing something like this, yes, you can patent that. But what will you bring out of this? Any product is not patentable. Just culturing embryonic cells, if you have found a method, a process, you can patent that. So next is discovery of living and non-living things. Anything found in the nature, as I said, is not patentable. You have already known that. Even bacteria or microorganisms, if you find in nature, anything found in nature is not patentable. But okay, I'll come to that later. That is not patentable. And section 3D says mere discovery of new form of a new substance, new form of a known substance, which does not result in enhancement of efficacy. So that is not patentable. So if you have found a crystal form of a polypeptide and an amorphous form of the same polypeptide, you cannot patent both. And you would have heard about the Novartis case, which was that imatinib mesylate. So where this case was going on. So crystal form and the amorphous form cannot be patented as two separate patents, because it's a known new form of a known substance. That is all. But if you show a significant therapeutic efficacy, then it is patentable. Of course, in Novartis case, government of India did not allow it because they did not. Their argument did not show significant therapeutic efficacy. So in this case, significant therapeutic efficacy is a very crucial factor that you want to do, that you should show if you want to patent new form of a known substance. Otherwise, it's not allowed. So mere use of aspirin, new use of a known substance, use of aspirin to treat cardiovascular disease, you cannot patent it. And generally in India, use claims is not allowed. You cannot claim the uses of a substance. You can only claim the product or a process. Whereas in US, use is again claimed. So in India, it does not allow the use claims in your patent. I'm talking about the claim structure. In the claims of a patent document, you cannot write that I claim to use in so and so therapy, or I claim to use in so and so formulation. No, you cannot claim the use of that particular substance. The next is 3 is mere admixture resulting in the aggregation of the properties. So a combination of you say a dormant spores of 2 types of fungus, if you take, mix them together. Okay, they certainly contain some enzymes and all, and growth promoting molecules to control plant parasitic nematodes. So you're mixing these 2 spores of the 2 types of fungus, and you are using it as a controlling agent for the parasitic nematodes. This will not be allowed as under patentability, because you're simply mixing 2. It's a mere admixture. There is no human intervention in that. There is no value addition in that invention. It cannot be called as an invention because there is no value addition or human intervention. So this is not allowed. Moreover, whatever the enzymes, fats, and growth promoting molecules is naturally occurring in, and that only is doing the job. So we don't do anything in that. So it is not allowed. Next, a method of agriculture, horticulture. is not allowed, like method of terrace farming and all is not at all allowed, because the method of plowing, method of planting saplings, all those things are not allowed, because but the tools that you use for agriculture, of course they are allowed. Whatever the tools that you implements that you use, that can be patented, but not the method of doing it, because again this has a moral implication, because any method, these are all traditional methods that has been followed, and nobody can claim that method to be their own. It has moral implications and prejudicial to the good of the society. And again, section 3J, 3I, any method of treatment like for medicinal, surgical, curative, prophylactic, diagnostic, therapeutic of human beings, animals, or other treatments of the similar nature cannot be patented. That is, how you give the it as the drug is given as an oral supplement, whether it's a topical application, whether it's like through IV injection, whatever it may be, whatever it may be, the method of treatment again is not patentable, but that drug or that whatever the drug or whatever the injection, IV fluid, whatever that you're giving, whatever the ointment that you're applying as a formulation, of course it can be patented, but the method of doing it cannot be patented. Like you giving a massage using certain ointments in order to bring down certain inflammation, that method, a particular way of massaging, giving a treatment, that cannot be patented, but that ointment of course can be patented as a formulation. These are some of the diagnostic methods. As an example, I'm giving you like these, taking out blood as a sample and BP checking, whatever. These cannot be done. Curative methods, of course, method of cleaning your teeth, plaque from your teeth cannot be patented, of course. Anything, the general of cleaning method cannot be patented. And a method of vaccination, how they do, they cannot be patented, but the vaccines can be patented. So treatment methods to increase the economic value of animals, like they want to increase the body weight of in poultry or in even sheep, whatever. If they want to increase the body weight, how they do the treatment methods is not patented, but the whatever feed that you are giving, of course, can be patented. If it's like if it meets all the criteria, if it meets the criteria, then it can be patented. And increase wool yield in the sheep. So people try to increase the wool yield in the sheep, and the method of shearing the wool, how they shear the wool cannot be again patented. So next is going to be the living entities of the natural origin, like animals, plants, whole plants, species, genes, seeds, microorganism, living entities as found in the nature cannot be patented. This is section 3J. So any process of manufacturing or production relating to living entities, again, cloning of human beings or animals is not patentable in India. Again, it has the public order, against the public order or morality, and has got the ethical issues. Okay, so this is not allowed in India. Of course, the method you can patent it, but not the product. Okay, that method maybe it is allowed, but the manufacturing as a product, you cannot come out with a product using that process finally. Anyway, so essentially biological processes for the production of plants and animals, such as method of crossbreeding, is again not allowed. I mean, sorry, if there is an intervention, you have brought out a pollination and you have done it, then this method can be, of course, patented, because you have an intervention in that. You are claiming the method only, but of course, as earlier I've told you, you cannot claim the particular plant as such. So what is the transferring of the pollen grains? If whatever you're doing, it can be patented. That process can be patented. The provision of section that does not provide any guidance on the GMO, patentability of the GMOs, genetically modified organisms. Then none of these exceptions have been definitively interpreted, because they're ambiguous. And generally in India, all these things, not only in India, even in TRIPS agreement, many of these clauses are subject to many different interpretations based on the situation, based on the type of invention. As I told you in the Onco mouse, it was compromised based on the utilitarian benefit. Okay, finally it was on the balancing, utilitarian balancing test, they call that. So based on that, they were able to come up with that, they were able to grant that patent. So accordingly, in many of the things, the GMOs, even though there is not a clarity in that, but still some of the things are allowed for the societal benefit, like in BT cotton, it was allowed. So some of the naturally occurring elements, as I told you, the same things, naturally occurring elements are not allowed. So process patents on genetically modified organisms. So Indian law essentially excludes essentially biological processes from patenting. So essentially biological processes, which is occurring naturally. Essential biological processes here, it means which occurs naturally, That is essential for the propagation of the plant, for the reproduction of the plant, for the plant to live. All these are essential biological processes. And even if you try to do the same process in the same way, then you cannot patent it. But if you do this, the biological processes in a different, you put in a new thing, new segment, any gene, you introduce a new gene into it and try to make the process a slightly different, but we come out with a similar product, then that process is allowed for patent because you have a human intervention in that. So that is what essentially biological processes means here. So in the Monsanto case, a process shall not be considered essentially biological process if human intervention amounts to a significant alteration or introduction of the genetic composition of the plant or animal. Here the BT cotton is an example wherein the cotton is made, the cotton cannot be attacked by the bollworm. So that is what it was. The gene was introduced, so that Bacillus thuringiensis gene was introduced, such that the plant became immune to that attack of the bollworm insect. So that was the main idea behind granting this patent, because it's not an essentially biological process. In the natural way, the plant is susceptible to attack by the pest, but this is a human modified way, altered way, and it does not cause any harm to the human society. So that was also validated. Based on that, the patent was granted to the for the BT cotton to the Monsanto. So one school of thought generally about the genetically modified substances is that they are not naturally occurring and can be granted process patents since they involve microbiological processes, not essentially biological processes. Okay, so this is one school of thought. But another school of thought is GMOs are not ethically or morally correct, because generally people think that you do not know what will happen later to the genetic modification that you do to the plant or animal, and we take it up, we start ingesting it, and what will happen to the plants or animals which ingest that genetically modified plant. So this was a ethical issue, still revolves around it. So any invention which is traditional in effect, which is traditional in knowledge, and which is an aggregation or duplication of known properties of traditionally known components, again is not patentable, just such as the parts of neem tree possessing antibiotic or antiseptic properties. So antiseptic property of the turmeric, then female fertility by Ficus religiosa. All these are known as traditional knowledge, because turmeric, we all know this as Indians, we all know this, and this cannot be patented in India. But of course, we know that we have heard the case of neem and turmeric, which was patented by US, and which is the government had fought against it. Indian government fought against it and revoked that patent, claiming the traditional knowledge of India. So that was one major case study which had taken place in India. So gene sequences and DNA sequences without a function disclosed, again, cannot be patented, because without a function you do not have an industrial application. That is what I told in the beginning. And of course you do not have an inventive state, because you do not have a specific function. You do not attribute a specific function, not the natural function which is already attributed to it, but whatever sequences that you create should have a specific function attributed to that. Otherwise it will lack the inventive step as well as the industrial applicability. So it cannot be patented. So what are patentable in biotechnology? This happened after 2005. You would have heard of the Anand Mohan Chakrabarty's case, where the superbug of Pseudomonas putida was created by him uh, to transform, to break down the the petroleum products. He created a superbug using the plasmids from different bacteria and other organisms, microorganisms, in order to create one superbug, which will do the which one single bug can, microorganism can do the work of multiple organisms. So that was a superbug that he created, wherein it was earlier denied. Of course, it was denied patent even in US, but later they fought this. That is this Diamond versus Chakrabarty case study, where they fought and they said all these plasmids are not found in a single organism per se, okay, in nature. So it is not a naturally occurring organism, but it is created by the human. So here considerable human intervention is there, and hence it can be allowed patent. So this was based on this argument. Finally, the US Supreme Court granted the patent. So this is this. He has multiple plasmids into a single organism to break down the hydrocarbons. That was this. It was granted in favor of Chakrabarty in 1931. Okay. So based on this, again, one more thing was this bursitis infection vaccine for the bursitis infection. When it was created, again, there was much of row against it, that it cannot be done because it's an attenuated organism which is being given as a vaccine. So anyway, it's a naturally occurring organism which is attenuated. So we cannot provide patent to that. But still, attenuation process was carried out by human intervention. And of course, that is why it's not a natural process. And the end product, though it contained a living organism, it was granted patent because there was a human intervention. And of course, there is a societal good to this. As we have seen in the moral oncogene process, this one, we also think about the ethical, moral issues, but also the societal good at large. So that is why the Honorable Judgment Court of this one, Calcutta, High Court of Calcutta has provided the patent for this bursitis infection vaccines for the bursitis infection. So from then on, this vaccine infection was also started being granted in India. So biological materials such as recombinant DNA, plasmids, process of manufacturing thereof are patentable provided they are they're produced by substantive human interventions. Again, the recombinant DNA, plasmids and processes, if you have a substantial human intervention, then it can be patented. So that is where the Cohen-Boyer patents, where for splicing the genes comes into picture in the biotechnology industry. So this created a lot of a complete changeover of the biotech industry. So this is one of the case study, and another one is the maize plant producing tryptophan amino acid. Maize plants which does not naturally produce, but this was made to produce tryptophan amino acid, was again provided patent. So all these are this is an example of a higher organism which is being given a patent, like BT cotton, one of the higher organism which was given patent. Earlier it was all microorganisms which were, even though in attenuated form or in a plasmid together in a single superbug and all, microorganisms. This was one higher organism which was granted a patent because it started producing tryptophan, which is not a naturally occurring process. So these are some of the examples, like synthetic biology, if you give, and then surfactant producing bio-derived surfactant on the microorganism in order to break petroleum derived surfactants, synthetic surfactants, producing synthetic surfactants finally as a extracellular material. And of course, these are you provide genes from 2-3 materials to produce a superbug, as they say, or a microbial modified microbe with many plasmids in it in order to produce your desired product. If you want to produce your desired product, then the synthetic biology finds a major role now in order to get a patent now. So as it is now again, whenever you want to file a patent for a microorganism, like what we have said, it's a synthetically produced organism, and you want to file a patent, before filing the patent application, you should deposit the strain in a particular depository. Okay, so this is required, and the registration number has to be taken from the depository and included in the patent application when you file. Okay, when you file it only, it should be up, not in the complete specification, not in the provisional specification, but in the complete specification you certainly have to give the registration number. And why is it required? Because of course, I think the previous persons would have told you, but I am taking the liberty to tell you again, because generally higher order organisms, we know where to locate, and these organisms, of course, cannot be found by naked eye and even otherwise. So how do you identify the organism? By even through looking at through the microscopes, how do you identify this is the organism that you have created? It's not. So you have a registration number, and you
Ma'am, we can't hear you, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Now can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Please let me know if something happens like that, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Yeah. So these are the depositories under Budapest Treaty. This provision was brought under Budapest Treaty, and India has signed that agreement. And these are the two depositories which was created in India for the benefit of the Indians to deposit their microbes in those two and get a registration number. Certainly provide
Ma'am, again it is gone.
Oh, okay. It's got okay. Just a moment, ma'am.
Immediate requirement is first.
Can you hear me now, ma'am? Can you hear me now?
We have more.
Yes, ma'am.
You can hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, now it is clear.
Okay. So next is the sequence listings, expression sequence tags. Again, as I told you, these need to have an industrial applicability. So just because you say that it will act as a chromosome marker and all, it is not enough. Gene marker, it is not enough to get a patent for a sequence. But you should have a industrial applicability. That is, you should bring out a therapeutic product out of the gene sequence. Then only you can claim a patent over that sequence. Otherwise, it is not possible. And when you submit the sequence, just as how you submit in the depository, here again you have to submit the sequence. You will get a sequence number when you put it in the blast. When you submit the ID also in that application, in the complete specification, and in the same you should also provide the electronic form in a computer readable format. That is in a CD. You should submit the along with the application. But nowadays they may not ask this, but they will ask for a completely soft copy of it. That is also allowed in certain places, of course. But you should be able to give a computer readable format, because they need to check it using a software called a patent in software. They will check for the you have to, there is a particular format to give the sequences. There is a patent in software. Using the software, you have to give the sequence in that particular format. Okay, so once you give it in this particular format, then only the patent office will accept the sequence. Then when it comes to the patentability, of course, so one cannot have a patent for it for a gene sequences or a protein encoded by it unless it is disclosed how it can be used. That is, you should come out with ultimately with a product. Just the mere use of it as a sequence, simply how it is applicable, its application as a sequence is not patentable. But you come out with a therapeutic product. Supposing you use a probe to diagnose a specific disease, then it is allowed. Okay, just as a gene probe, simply used as a gene probe, as a chromosomal marker, it is not considered to have a industrial application. So you should come out with a product where it can be used to diagnose a disease or some treating a disease or whatever it could be. So it should come out ultimately as a product. So that is all about the non-patentability in Indian patent law in the perspective of only biotech. I have not taken many other things like mathematical algorithms and method of playing, method of literary work and all those things. All those are there, but I have not taken those things because those are not relevant to biotechnology. And of course, nowadays, when I would tell you, when you file a patent, nowadays there are a lot of interdisciplinary works going on. So when you file a biotech application, invention in the field of biotech, but still there will be interfacing with other fields. They'll be interfacing with other fields such as in AI or ML or whatever. So when such interfacing comes, there will not be just one IP. You may have to go for another IP like a copyright, okay? Or if that algorithm, whatever it can be brought out as a device, if it can be brought out as a device, like a diagnostic device, okay? But if you can brought out as a device, which you can interlink with your biotech product, then it can be filed as a single product, of course. Even that algorithm will be accepted in the patent application. Though I may call it algorithm, it is a software which is used for the functioning of the device, only that particular device, okay, wherever it is embedded. So that thing is allowed for the patent. But if it's not interlinked and it's not interfunctional, the function is not interrelated, then it's like mere admixture. Two things you are putting together. There is one more clause which I have not added here, like putting two things together. Okay, like I said, mere admixture, they also say putting two components together and make it work. Like if you have a fan and you fitted a light beneath it, the fan works separately, the light works separately. They're put together their functions are not interrelated. So such things are not again patentable. So here again, if the functions are not interrelated, then they will be thought of as separate patents, and you cannot claim patentability over it. It will be considered as multiple patents, first of all, and you cannot get a patent for that algorithm. Algorithm cannot be considered for that patent. It has to go for the copyright. Okay. So when interdisciplinary works comes, you have to take into account all these things also. When it is better to consult with an IP person, and then go ahead with it before even ideating your invention. Before filing a provisional specification, when you ideate the invention, try to speak to an IP person and try to find out whether you can really go for it as a single invention, or whether multiple inventions be involved in it, or whether that algorithm or whatever your software you're embedding is going to considered in the patent application. Please take due care that before going for complete specification, that you take care of all these things. Otherwise, when you file and you get an examination report, all this will unduly delay your application is one thing, and after putting on all the efforts, the inventor will be frustrated finally. So please take care of all these things, because as academicians, I know like researchers, they always think of the research part. Okay, so patent part, of course, as everybody, it's very common. Not patent part, not everybody is very mindful, because they think generally people, because I have also encountered people who come to me with a lot of inventions which are naturally occurring, and they say, I want a patent for this. It was not possible at all. You have to blindly tell them on the face, no, it is not patentable, and their face goes, sunken. Their face goes sunken, and they feel very bad that their invention is not able to be, cannot be. It is bad for on our part also to tell that after they have done so much work. So before you go into the deep down into the research, please make sure that it is patentable or not. If at all you want to go for an IP filing, please make sure of that. So next, now we come to the prosecution of the patent application. I'm sure many people would have dealt with it, but just we'll flip through it. So filing an application, you have 12 months. There are two routes. One is filing provisional, and then going to, after 12 months, going to complete specification, or file directly the complete specification. Okay, only if it's not abandoned. So 12 months is exceeded, it's considered as abandoned. So when you do the complete specification filing, the publication normally happens after 18 months, but you have the option to enter into the early publication, wherein you have to pay some money, of course, extra money, and then for that, and you have to file the request for examination within 48 months. But I would suggest that please file the request for examination before it is published. And if you're opting for request for early publication, please file it along with your first application only. Please file all the requests for early publication, requests for examination along with your first application only. Don't delay it, because that will unduly delay your application getting into the queue of examination. Then a controller forwards the application to the examiner. Then examiner submits a report to the controller, and controller in turn forwards you to the report to the applicant. There are no objection, it will be directly granted, of course, and it is very rare, of course, if it's a completely novel, disruptive innovation, disruptive innovation which is nowhere seen in the world, then only you will get such a grant. Of course, it would have been granted in the early days, like for mobile and this and such things and all, it would have been granted. But nowadays, of course, if you come up with such an invention, it will be directly granted, no questions asked. But if there are any queries, the applicant has to comply with the queries within the specified time. Now it's given us 6 months. Within that 6 months, you have to reply. So after that, the patent will be granted or not granted, depending on the controller's discretion, whether the controller is satisfied with your answers. Then based on that, it will be done. And after the grant of patent, it is not over. The applicant has to pay the renewal fee in order to keep it in force. If the renewal of fee is not paid, then the patent ceases, and no more it is your patent. It is in the public domain. Anybody can start using it, and you cannot claim infringement over that patent. Okay. And recently there is also that working of invention has to be filed. You also have to file the working of your invention. If you do not work your invention, also you have to say that I am not working the invention right now, but I hope to do it in the future. So that part has to be filed. Then the PCT is another thing, is an international application, you call it, where you file one application for around 153 countries, and you get a priority in all these countries. You do not get a patent, but you get priority in all these countries through a single application. And of course, when you file the PCT, there will be a search done by the International Search Authority. Now, India is also an international search authority. So they do the international search. I mean, they do a prior art search and give you a written opinion on your invention. So the written opinion helps you to assess your invention globally. I mean, if when you enter into the global scenario, how good it will be, whether you have the novelty and inventive step, industrial applicability part in your invention, not only from the Indian perspective, but from the global perspective. Do you have that? And if you still want to go ahead and examine your application, that can be done through the International Preliminary Examining Authority, of course. And they will examine your application just like how the Indian Patent Office gives examination report. They also will give an examination report. And how would that help? It will help you to amend your claims before you enter into, only amend, not introduce new things, only amend your claims before you enter into the other countries, national phase of other countries. That is what it helps you to decide on that. It will help you to work on that. And where all you want to enter can also be decided based on the patentability of it. So timeline for the PCT process, again, there are two methods. One is file priority, provisional application, complete specification. Then you go for the, when you file provisional application, when you file the complete specification after 12 months, you have to file the PCT, because from the date of priority, the 12 months is the time allowed in India to file the PCT. So after that, search report, international publication, and then you will have a demand. You can file a demand for international preliminary examination. Of course, it's optional, and you have to do it if you want. There is no mandate that you should surely do it. It is optional. You can do it if you want. Okay, because you want to assess your invention from the global perspective. If you want to assess the invention, you can do that. Then you enter into the national phase. Second way is directly file the first application, that is complete specification, you file it. Then you have 12 months to enter the PCT after filing the complete specification in India. So this is another route that you can do. Otherwise, the rest are all the same. So now when you come to the entrepreneurship part, okay, so where are the areas of biotechnology? First, to be an entrepreneur, you have to have an idea, a novel idea where you want to work on. So you want to either you want to become a startup, or you want to put up a company, you want to come up with a product or a service, whatever it may be, you have to have an idea. So in that idea, it is best to protect that idea as an IP if you want to reap the maximum benefits. As I've told you in the first few slides, it protects you from others, excludes others from infringing upon your invention. So you protect your invention first. That is why IP is given so much value. So what are the areas in biotechnology? As you see here, agriculture and food biotechnology is called the green biotechnology. As you know, I'm sure you're all biotechnology specialists. I don't have to tell you much, but I am just giving you a short brief of these things, which I know a little. So resistance to disease, tolerance for herbicides and or difficult environmental conditions. Then when it comes to industrial biotechnology, there are a lot of things: bio-based fuels, waste management. There are many things: fermentation, bioprocessing, and nanotechnology, nanobiotechnology. There are many things when it comes to industrial biotechnology, of course. But when it comes to agriculture, please see to it that you don't fall into the non-patentability criteria of this agriculture. Okay, that please take due care of that. And when it comes to healthcare, again, please take due care that you see whether it falls into the non-patentable criteria, any of them. And these are all some of the formulations. Of course, you can generate the IP in all these things. Clinical biotechnology and research services. Of course, you can create some app. Interface, as I tell you, artificial learning, ML, and all is now interfacing a lot, gaining up a lot. So these services will come into picture at that time, and you can, as I told you, try to see whether it can be done as a single device, as a single invention. And bioinformatics, again, it will not be that easily. You cannot patent these things. You have to consult with an IP person to see if how far you can really, how to overcome the non-patentability issues and try to bring out a patent with that. So that part before venturing into is please to see to that, because any bioinformatics and IT will always go into the copyright part of it. And of course, copyright is no less than patent. Copyright has its own value, of course. Copyright also has a commercial value. It has a protection. It has got a lot of value, just like any other IP. So it is no less than a patent, of course. Then artificial intelligence is one, I'm sorry. So when you see how it evolved, initially you see the incremental knowledge of microbiology, like crossbreeding, use of enzyme and alcohol fermentation. These were the earlier biotech which emerged, biotechnology field emerged. Later we brought out with some value additions like vaccines, antibiotics, enzymes, isolated enzymes and single cell proteins and all, which were little value addition were there. And you were able to claim some of the products from these things. Antibiotics and vaccines and all, we were able to claim products, enzymes used for many industrial purposes were also claimed as a product. Then came the genetic engineering, wherein you created all these things in monoclonal antibodies, wherein diagnostic kits and pharma applications, chemical applications, plant biotech, everywhere genetic engineering evolved. And of course, there are a lot of again ethical, moral issues which has to be considered, which were considered and still being considered. But now the fourth interface is going to be the artificial intelligence and synthetic biology, mediated inventions and synthetic biology, which plays a very, very crucial role in present day inventions. So that also you can see. But as I told you again and again, please see to the non-patentable criteria before you venture into that. So forms of IP that can be generated with a single product, you can get all these things. All these things, of course, with the plant varieties protection. I'm sorry, this is plant varieties protection actually. So so when you make a product, you can get a patent out of it. For a product or a process, you can give a name and get a trademark out of it. When you have a software associated, get a copyright out of it. And if you have any trade secrets which you don't want to reveal in the application, you can still keep it. You can still hold it back, provided that trade secret, not revealing the trade secret, does not affect does not affect the clause called sufficiency of disclosure. Any patent application, when it is evaluated, they will always look for sufficiency of disclosure, because sufficiency of disclosure is an enabling criteria for a patent application only because you are given monopoly for 20 years and after that it is for the societal good. So anybody who takes up your application should be able to come up with the same invention using your whatever description that you are given in the patent application. Okay, so that is very, very needed. Supposing this trade secrets may be a small thing, a small criteria, say a pH or a temperature or a small factor which may not be very detrimental to that invention, working of the invention. Okay, so this part has to be done, because otherwise somebody finds out you have not sufficiently disclosed your invention, it can be invalidated. Your patent can also be invalidated. So after taking almost all the efforts of the filing, drafting and inventing, your patent gets invalidated. It's very depressing. So please to see to that. That is also taken due care when you have trade secrets. And the new plant varieties is another protection, form of protection given exclusively for the plants, new plant varieties that you get. So what are IPable inventors are supposed to have this basic understanding when they go for a patent. So what results can be protected? See, you may say that you have extracted from a plant. You have taken a plant extract, okay, but out of the plant extract you have done a value addition. You may use the extract directly for something, okay, but that cannot be patented, of course. But if you add value to it, then it can be patented. That extract, if it's refined and purified, and if you add value, add a few more components to it, make it as a formulation, then it is patentable. So as such, they are not extracts cannot be patented. So what is a patent? What can be patented should be thoroughly explored before venturing into it. Then what are the IP rights at your disposal? When you come up with your invention, try to see what are all the types of IP that you can generate out of it. Not only patent. Other than that, can you go for a copyright? When you put a manual, when you create a manual for a device, you can come up with a copyright. And of course, I have told you earlier, again, I don't want to repeat it again and again. So designs and trademarks, these are some of the, what are all the other things that you can bring out from that invention? Just if you think you can come with a bundle of IP rights, of course. Then what are the rights that, what these rights entail, you should also know, because not all rights have the same duration, same type of protection. Like patents have 20, others have copyright 60, and the life of the copyright holder. So like that, trademarks 10 years plus 5, designs again. So what are the 10 years and what are the rights that are being provided? What is the duration? What is the extension time that you can take for these rights? All this you should try to get an idea with an IP person or with the literature available, whatever. Then term of protection for each protection IP are just what I told you. And knowledge and non-patentable subject matter, that is very crucial, as I told you. And also knowledge on the approval of the National Biodiversity Authority. Any living resources that you use in your invention, plants, any living resources, you should take the no objection from the National Biodiversity Authority, which has to be submitted to the patent office. That is also another mandate of the patent office, without which you will not be granted a patent. So this is to be, what is the provision for that? What needs to be done? Because it could be anything, any natural resource that, naturally occurring organisms that you use, that you should take the due NOC from the National Biodiversity Authority. So what is the procedure for that also should be taken due care. So when it comes to the entrepreneurship journey, you can start as an individual or as a registered startup. So why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Because you have an innovation which is a social, economically, technological, and environmental level. It's beneficial. That innovation is beneficial at all these levels. That is why you want to become an entrepreneur. Because the innovation should benefit the society at large. Because many of the grants, if you go, they will ask, what is the, you would have attended the big grant presentation in the morning, and certainly there is a thing called societal good. What is the benefits of the of your invention? That is one part which you have to fill up. Okay, so it is for the societal good. What is the societal good? That is one criteria how they will give you the grant. Otherwise, they will not give you the grant. So societal good is not in the patent and IP level. Even in the grants level, you should look for a invention which is beneficial to the society at large. So when it comes to a startup, what are the things that you have to take up as an entrepreneur also? First thing is, what you will get is an intellectual property. So what will you do with the intellectual property? Then you should try to, when the intellectual property should come up to the technology readiness level where you can make it as a viable product. When it comes to that level, then you should look for the investor funding. Then you also look for the marketing strategy, how to do it, and how to launch it in the public. These are all marketing business perspective of it, and how to you have to recruit some team. You have to recruit a team. Like in the big grant proposal, also they wanted a team. So similarly, you have to recruit a team if you want to become successful in your entrepreneurial journey. So IP monetization, generally, I think all this will be covered by in later sessions or previous sessions. I'm not sure, but I'm just giving you an overview. This monetization of whatever IP can be achieved through either licensing, assignment, joint venture, and venture capital. Assignment is the transfer of ownership. Licensing, limiting to or permitting certain users. Only certain users you are limiting. So assignment is completely you're transferring the rights of ownership and you don't have the ownership anymore. And of course, you can have a time limit for that. You can assign it for a particular duration also, say 10 years, 20 years, like that. So types of licensing when it comes: exclusive, non-exclusive, and sub-licensing are 3 types. Exclusive is one licensee. You exclusively give it to one licensee. Non-exclusive is multiple licensee. Okay, and sub-licensing is the licensee would wish to sometimes sub-license it to another person in order to promote their products, and to for a wider reach, they might want to sub-license it. So that clause you should always allow to the person you are licensing your invention. Okay, and this licensing, non-exclusive licensing, the inventor also can, I mean the patent holder, IP holder can also commercialize their invention. But in exclusive licensing, you are completely assigning the rights for a particular duration or for the entire lifetime. It depends, wherein you cannot exploit the invention during this time. Exclusive. So, but non-exclusive, of course, you can non-exclusive, you can exploit the invention. So there are some case studies, of course, a very well-known, famous case study, of course. But I have given it for self-development with external investment, like angel investors and such investors you have seen, investors. So that is the Biocon case studies that you have seen, that you have known already. You might have known the enzyme papain was included in a garage, and she brought out the fermentation technology for called the PLA fractor, which is a very cost-effective bioreactor, which was all things inclusive in one bioreactor. So what I wanted to tell you is, it was started as a small, though of course it is a very arduous journey that she has taken through. It's not a single, very simple journey, of course. But what I want to say is that the value of the IP. So they entered this highly professional world where the role of IP was very acute. We were creating very novel IP, and I started then to see how just how valuable this was. So the value of IP is what she recognized, and that is what she was able to monetize on when she was able to come up with an invention. So the IP protection is very, very crucial. Next is the licensing out is the medicine for the heart attack by the Impec Chandigarh, wherein they have created 2 conventional drugs. There were 2 conventional drugs to dissolve the blood clots, like streptokinase and TPA. So TPA targets the specific clot and is more effective than SK, but it is more expensive, 10 times expensive than SK. So what the MTech brought out was a hybrid technology, wherein the mutant SK-based protein molecule remains inactive for 5 to 13 minutes after administration, but it gets activated only when it's inside the blood clot. So this was one thing that they found. But what did they do ultimately? How did they benefit out of it? It's an excellent invention. And how did they benefit? They licensed it out, because they cannot, as such as researchers, they cannot go out and start an entrepreneurship, build a company. What they did was licensed it to Sachin Chemicals for 1 year, 2002 to 2003. But later it was given globally. It was launched in the Indian markets in 2009. And later it was globally licensed. After the licensing period with the Sachin Chemicals was over, it was globally exclusively licensed out to Nostrum Pharma. So this was wherein they reaped $5 million. These are some of the case studies, very well-established case studies, wherein licensing out is another strategy, and the joint venture is another strategy. This is a diabetic injection, where they created a painless needle. The needle was, generally when they create a needle, they'll try to drill a hole. But this person, what he has done is try to roll the metal sheet. A thin metal sheet was rolled in order to form a double-edged syringe, which is only 0.2 millimeters in diameter. Okay, which is very painless, and is used for the diabetics injection. Because diabetes people has to take injection almost every, not all diabetes, that they have to take injection almost every day, some of them. So they needed a very painless needle. This is what was done. So what was the joint venture that he did was, the person who created it, he approached a person, his known person, who would put in the money. He had the invention, but the person was an investor. Okay, so person was an investor. They tried to they try to create this invention and take it to the market. The other person has given the money to to work out this invention, to experiment this invention first of all, and later, because it's a very small device and needs a very meticulous working. So that is what they have done. So the joint venture was another methodology. If you have a person who can, who is able to invest in your invention, so such a venture capitalist, or not venture capitalist exactly, like a known person who would help you in the invention, and later you together reap the benefits 50-50. That's how it goes. So so this was done. They have the cost is approximately 0.20 US dollars, which is equivalent to 14 rupees. So which is very very cheap compared to the earlier needles, because the needles are also every day they have to use the needle. So this reached out to the majority of the patients, and they were able to make reap a big benefit out of it. Now, coming on to startups, I want to show you a few exemplary startups from the BBC. So some of the startups one of the startup is the Next Big Innovation Lab. They have created a 3D bioprinted skin called the InnoSkin. This was done for the in vitro testing applications, like any cosmetics or any drug application. I mean, anything you want to try, the topical applications if you want to try in the clinical research on the skin. So such things can be directly done on this, in the skin, in this fabricated skin, rather than on a human being. That is the idea behind that. And of course, there are many regulatory aspects to it which has to be overcome. But this is the product that they have come up with, and they have got a patent for that, and they have registered a trademark called the InnoSkin. Okay, so this is this will now act as a alternative model for the drug clinical applications, testing the clinical applications. So for creating that, they have made even modified the 3D printer that was earlier available. They have taken it and they have made the conventional 3D printer into two separate, two better housings. This now that generally the all the the heat thermoelectric cooler, heat exchanger, and the syringe are all placed in a single housing. Okay, so in a separate thing, but they have made it into a single housing. Here it is made into a single housing. Earlier they keep it in a separate housing. Earlier whatever they bought was made in a separate housing. They created in a single housing in order for a better cooling performance. That's what they have done. So this 3D printer was used to create the InnoSkin, and I think they are also working on 3D organs also, probably. And Omics Lab is another one. They have created the antimicrobial platform for a detection kit. So now here they have a platform for detection. They have a detection kit also, which will be a product now. Okay, it's a diagnostic kit, of course, and it will be a product now, and it has a patent application, and they have a trademark associated with that. And what they did was, when you attach it to an application, now this becomes a device. Now this becomes a device again. The software and analytics part of it, if you cannot file it as a single device, the software analytics part can bring in you a copyright over that, copyright as an IP for you. So these are some of the examples, and there is another one called the NeuroTouch. So the point of care medical device for peripheral neuropathy in diabetic patients is one thing, which is done by Eustra. So again, these, if you say it's an AI powered device, what they have done, so they interface the biotechnological part of it, the healthcare part of it, into a device so that they bring in a non-invasive method of diagnosing. So that is what they have done. A portable integrated device with 4 tests: protective, sensation test, vibration perception test, hot and cold perception test, skill temperature measurement test. All these are being done in a single portable device. Now, of course, again here you will have they have a patent and they have a trademark called a NeuroTouch, and the algorithm, of course, is copyrightable if not embedded, if it's not an embedded software. So when you come to the entrepreneurship, I'm sure finding a fund to work on an invention itself is a very big headache, I would say. Okay, first of all, for a researcher, for an academic person. So it's quite a laborious process also, we understand. So for biotechnology, though there are many types of schemes under MSME, DST, anything, be NSTDB and all, but still BIRAC is specifically for biotechnology. These are some of the fundings that can be used for an individual to become an entrepreneur or a startup. So as you heard in the morning, she would have told you about BIG and Sitare and EUR. So these are for ideation to early stage, then ideation to late stage. After you finish the early stage, morning you would have heard that it's for 18 months. But 18 months you cannot come up with a complete product, of course. It's only proof of concept. Once you do want to accelerate the work and go to the late stage research, you can take these two types of funding and BIP and SIBRI, and go ahead with the late stage research. And for promoting academic research, especially for academic research, is PACE, which has two components in it, AIR and CRS, Academic Innovation Research and Contract Research Scheme. Okay, so all these details, if you have any social innovation, there are separate schemes for that. All these schemes you can, of course, find in the BIRAC website, and try to take out these schemes and utilize it for the benefit. And equity funding, where a seed fund is where you are given money to carry out, and of course, once you succeed, you give a equity in your startup. Whatever startup you have, you give a equity. So such things are being given like in all under BIRAC for accelerating entrepreneurs and all. Then you have the product commercialization program also, wherein the product that you find, finally you want to commercialize it, a fund is being given for that also. So BINA scheme under BIRAC, there are also possibilities to establish the bio incubators as a standalone entity or as a part of academia, wherein this bio incubators will help you to culture more of individuals and startups as entrepreneurs. That's a very idea of that. So Startup India scheme again has a host of you can have tax benefits, easier compliance, IPR fast tracking, because if you are a startup registered under DPIIT, then you can fast track your application. And one more thing I want to tell you, in the expedited exam, when you go for expedited examination, if you are a women applicant and if you are a government agency, you can get your application examination expedited. Also recently there is another this one given by notification by the government, wherein if the academic institute is aided by the government, then they can avail. Okay, that is another one. Please look into that. So those things, but of course you have to pay extra money for all this expedited process. But if you really want to get it fast, these are some of the routes that you can avail. Then also, okay, so these are some of the avenues are becoming an entrepreneur or startup from in the field of biotechnology. And thank you very much for your patient listening. And I would be happy to take up any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Wonderful presentation. So, participants, if you have any queries, please unmute yourself and ask, or you can post it in the chat box.
I hope the presentation was little informative. Not the earlier same overlap was not there, I believe.
No, madam, no. It was completely different and it was completely informative. Totally informative,
Okay.
especially from the biotech sector.
Yes, thank you. Because I know that when it comes to IP, it will always be the same topics again. So
To hearing IP from biotech background people will be different.
Different, yes.
That makes a lot of difference.
Okay. So I think some chat box, something is there. I think. Let me see.
Chat box.
No, there are no questions. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Participant, please unmute yourself and you can ask ma'am directly, or you can put it in the chat box.
I think everybody is hungry. It's 1 o'clock. So if there are no questions, I hope you benefited out of that big program in the morning also. So you can relate that and this, and to go for the big application, always try to file a provisional application, which will give you an advantage over other applications. When you have a provisional application and you quote that number, patent number, in your big application, certainly it will have an advantage over other applicants. So try to do that. So if not this time, because time is too short now to prepare the application, if not this time, you can certainly try for the next call. It comes twice a year, so you can do it for the next call. And anything related to want to, of course, as IP cell of BBC, we are also offering the prior art search, the patentability search, and the FTO search to all the people. So if you want to make use of it, you can reach out to us. And I would also want to give out one more information that we are offering a course on clinical research and development. It's a short-term 3-month course, which is more focused giving a job, facilitating a job. And of course, it can be taken up even by entrepreneurs and academicians if they want to have an idea on the regulatory aspects, that is clinical research aspects of the inventions. If they want to have, even academicians like faculties also can participate in it and benefit out of that. It's a short-term course, it's an online course, and it starts from March 15. And we have rolled out the brochure, and of course, I will send out to all the to you, sir, so you can share with all the faculties and your students. And we will certainly facilitate the placement for the students who are enrolling in it. Sure, that is for sure.
It's virtual mode or regular mode, madam?
Pardon me, sir?
It's offline or online mode?
Online. Now we cannot
Online.
hold anything offline, no, sir.
Okay.
Right now we are holding it online, this batch. Maybe if Corona permits, then we will start holding it
Please
offline.
WhatsApp the details so that we'll communicate it to our groups so that those who are interested can immediately enroll for that.
Sure, sir. And one more thing in this, sir, recent development in that course is the course is being offered for 3 months, out of which 1 month will be internship. So 20 days around will be internship, where you will be placed in of your choice. Like you will be choosing a particular direction, whether you want to go into the pharma file like IQAC. If you want to be an IQAC or whatever you want to become, based on that, you will be directed to either a pharma industry or to a hospital, depending on that, any pharma industry, anywhere. Or you will be put up in a regulatory affairs firm. There you will be trained to handle the applications and all, like common technical documents, how to process a common technical document for regulatory affairs compliance. All this will be done, but the person has to choose where they want to go. Okay, so that will be decided at the mid of the course. That is 1.5 months. After 1 month, it will be decided. After that, they will be rerouted channelized according to their choice. And we also have an option: the best 2 students per batch, best 2 candidates per batch, not students, candidates per batch, will be sent to Switzerland. So that is one thing we are working out. Of course, we have a tie-up with a person in Switzerland, in a regulatory affairs person who is an expert, and we will put them up there for about a month or 2. I mean, it depends. We have to work out on those things. But before the program ends, we will work out all those things. And of course, we are trying to provide the airfare for the person to go and come. Airfare will be taken care by us. That is what we are proposing right now to the government. If fruitfully the government accepts our proposal, and we will be able to send 2 candidates to Switzerland to learn their methods. And if possible, they will get placed there also. It depends. So these are some of the recent developments of the course, but we will certainly facilitate placement. That is for sure.
Fee structure, madam?
Fee structure is 15,000, sir, totally,
15.
for the entire course, which is very nominal compared to outside being offered. Outside is offered by 45,000, as we saw. So 15,000 is very nominal for students if they want to get into a job.
So this is for faculty also, or only for students?
No, faculty, entrepreneurs, startup, anybody can join. I mean, if you want to learn, faculty do not want to leave the job, they would want to learn about it. Students would want to go for a job. It's your aim, why you want to do
Please share the details, madam. So it will be beneficial for our students also who are in 7th semester or in 5th semester also. They can enroll it and can upgrade their knowledge.
Yes, sir. Please share it with mostly we try to focus on the master students, because they will have a more understanding when it comes to regulatory than bachelors. So we are trying to masters and above. That is what we are trying to focus now. So if possible, please
make it for graduates also, because they are also much more mature than the masters also.
Is it? Okay.
Yes,
Then no, ask them to register.
Yeah.
The thing is, we will have an interaction, a personal interaction for the first 15 days, 1st March to 15th March. We'll have a personal interaction where the expert, regulatory affairs expert, whom we have taken into this one board. They will interact with them and find out how much they can cope up with this course. If they have a really good understanding and they're able to cope up with that course, then we will ask them to pay the fees. Otherwise, they need not pay the fees. Okay, so only after selection process only they will pay the fees. So because some student who comes and they're not able to cope up later, we should also not feel bad that they paid the fees. We are not able to cater to them. So that also is a thing. So it depends. Ask them to register, sir. We will certainly see how far they can go. That we will.
Definitely. Please share the details so that we will circulate it.
Sure, sir. I'll do
Thank
it
you,
by
madam. Thank you very much. With such kind of programs, we will launch in the phase 2 also. So we were discussing with Dr. Jitendra Kumar also, so that
Yes.
we will make you as a knowledge partner for our phase 2, so that we can, in detail, we can discuss in each session to all the participants, so that we will reach the people very easily.
Okay, phase 2 is the same program will be conducted as phase 2 or different
madam.
participants, the same participants?
No, participants will be different. Theme will be same. And the date should be phase 2 March 8th to March 20th.
Okay, sir. Sure, sir.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am, for that informative talk. So on behalf of the staff, students, and the management of the Oxford College of Engineering, I extend my gratitude to Dr. Mary for having accepted and given us such wonderful talk. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. And if there is any feedback from the participant side, because they're all academic faculties, if they think that we should improvise the talk, include certain other matters in the presentation. If any such feedback is there, please let me know so that I can incorporate and address it next time.
Yes, ma'am. We will do that.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And participants, we will start the next